I told God sometimes I feel neglected. Why you throw me curveballs I wouldn't expect it? I guess you trying to teach your child a lesson. I hope out of this situation come a blessing.
The only photo that exists of 4-year-old Amy Emily Annamunthodo is one in her coffin after she was beaten to death by her mother and her mother's boyfriend. Amy deserved to be loved and cared for, but instead she lived a life full of torture and essay by her mom's boyfriend. Amy's story is rarely told, so I think she deserves to be heard today. Hello, my name is Holly. Welcome to the Murder She Shed, the place we tell, rarely discuss true crime right from my she shed. I'd love for you to join us here, usually weekly, right here in my crime shed. You can listen to me tell rarely told true crime, also breaking cases occasionally. Well, before I begin, I just want to say this is not dirt, and it's not bruises. It's stain. I've been staining my back porch, and so therefore I ran out of mineral oil and I couldn't get it all off. So I did take a bath. I am not dirty. Just want y'all to know that up front. So many harsh judges here on YouTube. I'm usually clean, I swear. So if you hit the subscribe button, maybe next time you'll see me cleaned up. Before we begin, this story is very upsetting because it does involve CA and SA on a child. And it is a rather rough one, I'm going to say. So viewer discretion is advised. Trinidad is the southernmost island in the West Indies. Trinidad is home to some beautiful beaches and giant leatherback turtles. It was also home to Amy Emily Annamunthodo for 4 short years. Amy, who was often called Emily by her family, was born in Trinidad on July 5th, 2002 to Anita Annamunthodo and Jason Walker at San Fernando Hospital. Anita was just 14 years old when she gave birth to Amy. The couple separated when Amy was 8 months old, and Walker was not allowed any visitations with his daughter. Anita soon thereafter met a 33-year-old man named Marlon King, who already had 3 children. The oldest was about the same age as his new girlfriend, Anita. Marlon was a security guard. He was known for his abusive ways. His ex-wife had stated that he had left her beaten, naked in a road, threatening to burn her before deciding instead to cover her with grass. He also forced her to perform OS, just going to say OS because YouTube doesn't like the other word, to their 7-year-old daughter. Also, Marlon told her to perform OS on a 1-year-old male child, which it doesn't say if he was a relation to them. Marlon, Anita, and Amy moved into a small wooden 2-bedroom home on Madeline Street, and it didn't take long before Marlon was up to his old habits. In March 2004, neighbors reported to police that Amy was being tortured and beaten by her stepfather, Marlon. Everyone knew that Amy was being abused, including her own biological Jason Walker, but were so afraid of Marlon that they refused to speak up. One neighbor saw Marlon push Amy down a flight of stairs. Then he yelled at her to get up. The neighbor believed she had dislocated a shoulder, but he knew that she never received medical care for that incident. I can't imagine knowing my daughter was getting abused and not, I better choose my words wisely. Started to say something I probably shouldn't have, but let's just say, and not doing something to this man that I would not regret. Let's put it that way. Because I can't imagine just standing by and letting your little child get abused. But apparently, sadly, Amy was not important enough to save. It seems like they felt this way. Amy, who was scared of the dark, was often locked in a dark room while Anita and her boyfriend were away from the home. There were always strangers seen coming and going from that home, and it was said that they were coming there because Marlon allowed them to have sex in the home. And although it is not made clear, I assume Amy was being used by men for this reason because the DNA of 2 different men's sperms were found on Amy's dress. Just short of her 2nd birthday, she was taken to the San Fernando General Hospital with a fracture to her forearm and many bruises in various stages of healing. Shortly after that, she turned 3, Amy was once again taken to the hospital, this time with blunt force trauma to her back, and as before, bruises in various stages of healing. Marlon's father was the hospital administrator, which could explain why the abuse was not being reported. Instead, she's just being sent back home to that same abusive home over and over again. In May of 2005, Amy was taken to the hospital for a third time after being abused and tortured, but this time, no one came back to pick her up from the hospital. Amy was scared and confused and was placed in the Mothers Union Children's Home in San Fernando. Amy, who only weighed 33 pounds, had delayed speech and poor general development, but she began to thrive in this loving environment. When Amy first arrived at the children's home, she was just shy of her 3rd birthday. Amy couldn't bear to be touched by anyone. The only touch she had was painful. So she was scared that anybody that touched her would cause pain. This is a heartbreaking case. It's so sad. It just broke my heart when I researched this case. How could a child fear human touch? So abused that they fear human touch. Just awful. Any voice above a whisper would make little Amy tremble. Within a few weeks of care at the home, Amy began to talk and smile more. She seemed happy for the first time in her little life. However, tragically for Amy, it was deemed safe for her to be returned to the custody of her grandmother in December of 2005. When her grandmother became ill and couldn't care for Amy any longer, then she was given back to her mother and Marlon, and her fate was sealed. Within 4 months of leaving the sanctuary of the children's home, Amy would be dead. On May 15, 2006, neighbors heard Amy let out a blood-curdling scream, and then it grew quiet. Amy was brought to the San Fernando hospital at 9:30 p.m. that night by her mother, Anita. The doctor on duty pronounced her dead at the same hospital she had been born in. She was in full rigor mortis when brought to the hospital, so it was estimated that Amy had already been dead at least 6 hours. The doctor observed that she had extensive injuries throughout her whole body. There were multiple bruises on her body, and there were cigarette burns on her chest, abdomen, back, and genitals. He contacted the San Fernando police station, and police officers came to the hospital. Police then interviewed both Anita and Marlon. Marlon's story was that he had woke up about 6:30 that morning, went outside, and then went to the store for cigarettes. He came back home and woke up Anita. After getting up, he said, "We played a little bit. Me and Anita loved to play. Then I left and went back next door, bought bread, came home and fried 3 eggs up, and I gave each of us a portion of that meal." He said, "We sat down to have breakfast and we then put on the television. After that, Anita sent Amy to her bedroom because we were watching movies, switching channels because we have cable. We watched movies until about noon. Then Anita said she had to go somewhere. So Marlon told Anita, 'Remember that you have to come back because I have to leave for work about 4 p.m. And so she said, "All right," and got ready and left. All that time, Amy was still sleeping, he said, so he just continued to watch TV. About 2:30, Amy got up, and that is when he said she realized she had pooped on herself because she was crying. And he said, "I told her to take off her pants and go out downstairs by the pipe and wash her bottom. While I was looking for a jersey and a pants for her, she came back upstairs, and I gave her a towel and told her to dry her skin." He said they then gave her the pants and jerseys to put on. He said, "Then we went back into the living room, and I told her just to sit on the chair." And he said, "I lay back down on the couch and watched television." Then about 5 to 4, Anita came home, he said. "I told her that I did not think that I was going to work today because my tooth was hurting. I then got up and said that I was going to make something to eat for dinner. I went into the kitchen, peeled potatoes, and put potatoes and eggs to boil. I then went back into the living room and watched television while I was cooking." So the meal got done, and he said the 3 of us sat down and ate the meal. He said he had to raise his voice at Amy because she wouldn't eat. So he told her to open her mouth if she needed to eat. He said after they finished eating that he went outside and was going by the neighbor's house when his phone rang, and that was about 7:30. And that is when Anita told him to come home. So he turned around and walked back up the road and went inside. He said, "There is where I met Anita hugging Amy and crying. She said, 'Amy is dead.' I said, 'What do you mean Amy is dead?' She said, 'Amy just stopped breathing.' And because of the sudden shock, I just kept asking that question for about 5 minutes. 'What do you mean Amy is dead?' And then I told her I'm going to call my father, who was the hospital administrator, and he could tell me what to do in this situation." So, of course, after that, Anita then took Amy to the hospital. This story was a complete fabrication. Later, the true story of that day would be told by, actually, Marlon's friend. You wonder, how did he know the story? Well, because he had been there the day Amy was murdered. Andre Anthony Rock, who lived about 5 houses away from Marlon and was also good friends with him, stated that him and Marlon would often hang out at the house where they would talk, cook, and watch television. Then on May 15, 2006, around midday, Rock was at the house. He and Marlon were in the living room viewing an adult movie and smoking cigarettes. Rock said that he heard Amy in one of the bedrooms crying and just making a humming noise. He was aware that Anita was not at the home since he saw her leaving around 11:30 a.m. to 12 noon while he was at his brother's coconut shed some 200 yards from the house. He went to the house about 5 minutes after she had left. After about 20 minutes had elapsed, Marlon asked him to leave as he wanted to rest. He was tired. Rock walked down the front stairs and sat smoking a cigarette under the house for about 4 minutes to allow his eyes to adjust to the light as the glare outside affected his eyes. He was leaning against one of the middle pillars of the house, and after 2 to 3 minutes, he felt the house vibrating. He was curious and thought that Marlon had a woman upstairs, so he quietly went up the front stairs and peeped through a hole in the door of where the sounds were coming from. This is when he saw an image that he could not erase from his mind. He saw Amy hanging from a cloth tied to her hair. The cloth was tied over a door ledge. Her feet were off the ground and she was swinging them back and forth. She was not crying. Her mouth was tied with what appeared to be a plastic bag, and she only had her panties on. He then saw Marlon punch Amy in the chest 20 to 30 times, saying for her to hush her mouth. "Hush your mouth. You wouldn't hush your mouth," he said. After seeing what was happening, Rock became frightened and didn't know what to do. He descended the stairs and attempted to contact the police on his cell phone about 2 or 3 times, but was unsuccessful. Or at least he said he attempted to call cops. He left for his house around 12:10 and told his little brother what he had just witnessed. After this, one of his sons came home and he left to go pick his other son up from school. Then another word was said about Amy until she was brought into that hospital that night by her mother, wrapped in a white towel. On May 16, 2006, the ME performed a postmortem examination on Amy's body. He testified that she was severely underdeveloped for her age and was undernourished. He detailed the following extensive injuries which he found on her, including bruises on her face, neck, chest, belly, shoulder, hands, and pelvis. There were scrapes on her neck and chest and belly. There were burns resembling that from a cigarette on her chest, belly, thighs, and private parts. There was bruising and bleeding on her scalp. The third right rib was fractured. Several of the organs were bruised, including the thymus, lungs, and liver. There was also bruising and bleeding of the heart. There was froth in the air passages and reddening of the lining of the air passages. He indicated that both the fracturing of the rib and the bleeding in the abdominal cavity would have been caused by the application of a severe degree of force with a blunt object. According to him, in order to inflict such injuries with a clenched fist, there would have been the need to put some degree of shoulder into the punch. So Marlon hit her hard, probably with everything he had. The ME indicated that injuries to the scalp and the eyes were consistent with Amy being held by her hair. Amy's heart had basically exploded from the torture she endured that day. Amy had been as 2 different DNA from sperm was found on a dress in that bedroom that she had died in. Anita was arrested and slapped with 6 counts of willful neglect of her murdered 4-year-old daughter. but was never charged due to a screw-up at the police station. She was released from jail after only 11 months served. Marlon King was convicted and sentenced to hang for her murder. And I actually could not find if he's actually been hung. Amy, Emily, Annamunthodo, may you rest in peace. And through your story, may we learn not to remain silent. May we learn to speak up and speak out if we think those around us are being hurt in the way that you were hurt. It's just so sad that these little children have to be born to such evil and never have happiness here on earth. I just hope you finally have your angel wings, little Amy, Emily. Simon's coming here to make your day because I don't want to leave you sad. Tell him bye. Tell him bye. Tell him bye. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, say bye. See, he's trying to wave. I'm trying to wave. It's hard on the bed to wave in the book. Yes. He's such a good boy. He makes everybody happy. I think he does. When we're sad, he always makes me happy. He's a good boy. All right, we love y'all. Have a great day. Hope to see you soon. Bye.
Dealing with these problems on my own, but I don't wanna be alone. I told God sometimes I feel neglected. Why you throw me curveballs I wouldn't expect it? I guess you trying to teach your child a lesson. I hope out of this situation come a blessing.